Hello, thank you for joining me. This is the third video in this series. This is the second half of the first hour. And we are talking on perspective, your story, and basically how that affects your ability to see your situation. And this is where there's a lot. There's a lot. And well, I'm just going to get right into it. There are certain things that we grow up hearing every single day. Every day we hear it. We hear it outside. We hear it in the car. We hear it on the radio. We hear it in our media. It is very, very saturated. And they're not quite life proverbs. They're just societal sayings like, well, life is all about paying taxes and you die. You've heard of that one. We have heard a lot about these different things. Children should be seen and not heard. These are something that I refer to as societal gaslights. When I was studying narcissism and gaslighting, I realized this is actually a huge, huge door that opened for me. When I realized that ex-boyfriends are not the only ones who gaslight, ex-husbands are not the ones who gaslight. I mean, they are, but they're not the only ones. I noticed that my brother gaslit me. My parents gaslit me. Not surprised. I noticed that my children would gaslight each other. That I put a stop to. That was a huge, we're going to sit down and we're going to talk about gaslighting. Gaslighting. That's what we're going to talk about in this particular 30 minutes. Gaslighting is when someone changes your story. Drop mic. That's it. Gaslighting is when someone changes your story, whether they do it on purpose, whether they do it maliciously, whether they do it on accident. They're changing your story. Now, I had a really fantastic experience because my story was amazing. In my brain, when I was 5, I believed that I was a goddess. I was a fairy, and I had the ability to walk on the moonbeams. So every night, especially during a full moon, I would walk out into the nature and I would strip naked and dance with the moonlight on the beams. This was my world, and it was real. And I was so happy for it. It was my world. Now, no one else saw this world. No one saw this world. So no one ever stopped me to say to me, Anna, that's bullshit. It's not real. Because it was just me and the moon. And it was that way every time I went into the forest. And every time I was in the rain. Every time. Because there was no one there telling me what my story should be. When you consciously decide it's time to sit down and spend time with yourself all alone, what you are really doing is learning your story. You are finding your story. But there's a lot of gaslighting in your life. The biggest surprise that came to me is when I realized that society gaslights us. Society actually gaslights us. The government gaslights us. The media gaslights us. Every time you hear the word you shouldn't, you're being gaslit. Because it was me dancing in the moonlight, la 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 la. And no one was there to say, you shouldn't do that. I shouldn't? Why shouldn't I? According to my story, I should. Or the more subtle narcissistic method, you know what you should do? You should go buy a Big Mac at McDonald's. That's what you should do. That's gaslighting. That is actually subliminal messaging and gaslighting in one, because they are putting an idea and a thought into Identity's head. Identity is processing that, and now she goes, damn it, I want a Big Mac. I am a vegetarian. I don't want a Big Mac. I live in New York City. If I want to spend $10 on really good food, I can do that so easily here, which is why I moved here. So I don't want McDonald's. It doesn't work on me. I am immune. I am more immune because I know that that's what they're doing. Because I know how that fucking works. A lot of people don't know how that works. And that's the problem. You don't know how that works because your conscious awareness is turned off. So the purpose of triadic healing is to turn on your conscious awareness through education. So that when you hear things like, you should really get yourself a Big Mac right now, you will be able to say, that's gaslighting. That's subliminal messaging. That is somebody incorporating a thought or an idea into my identity using my own memories so that she now wants X, which is going to make me say, damn, now I want a Big Mac. And because I've said it, intuition goes to work and starts pulling the threads. See how that works? Now, what if you were immune to subliminal messaging? What if you could recognize it? What if you were told, and the more you learned about subliminal messaging, the more you realized, are you ready for this one? That an entire religion was once used to embed thousands of subliminal messages into it. Yeah. I told you you're going to have an open mind when you walk into this room. The Roman Empire did not have media available to it. It did not have television available to it. What it had was psychology, story, philosophy, communication, the energy, and an illegal religion that had been underground for 60 years. So they used what they had with all of the education that they had available to them. They knew that if they used fear, they could embed subliminal messages into this religion and release it into the wild. And then the rest would just do itself and take care of itself. And it did. So here we are, regurgitating the same subliminal messages that were put out 2,000 years ago. Well, closer to 1,700 years ago. So that without thinking, we are saying the same things over. I get into this much later down the course. For now, we're going to just leave it here. But those subliminal messages, ask not what you can do for your government. I'm sorry, I always get that wrong. Do you want to know why I get it wrong? Because my subconscious wiring is so hardwired for the self that I can never get this quote right because it actually hurts me to say it properly. So I have to consciously say it their way. Let me think about this for a minute. Do not ask what your country can do for you. Ask instead what you should be doing for your country. That is a subliminal message that basically has the same message to it that's been passed down for centuries, which is the self doesn't matter. The government does. The system matters. You don't. Well, that's communism, but we're not going to get into that. We're going to set that aside. The point is, your parents heard that. And because they heard it through their religion, and because they heard that through lessons of selflessness and guilt and self-sacrifice, it just reiterated everything. Yep, that's right. That's right. You're not supposed to think about the self. You're not supposed to think about the self. You're not supposed to think about the self. So that when this government campaign runs in the 70s, everyone just nodded blindly and stupidly and went, that's right, you're supposed to destroy the self. That's right, you're supposed to destroy the self. Now, there are thousands of little comments that have been infused and embedded into our society through religion that are designed to completely destroy the identity and the self. Period. And that kind of regurgitating garbage gets passed down to good citizens. And good citizens spend a lot of their time regurgitating more of that garbage because they want to be a good citizen too. And so that when those good citizens have children, they regurgitate that garbage onto their children. And now you, instinctively linked to, I have to please mommy and daddy, are being destroyed because your identity offends their belief. How dare you have an identity? You are supposed to be serving the system. Get rid of your identity. Destroy it. And your parents will do things and say subtle things like children should be seen and not heard. When you raise a child on this concept that a child should be seen and not heard, by the time the child becomes 20, that program doesn't stop. It becomes an adult who is to be seen and not heard. When you are raised as a child who should be seen and not heard, you turn into an adult who should be seen and not heard. And you think you're going to just be okay? Every lesson we were taught as a child stays with us and turns us into the adults we're going to be. And children are taught to be silent, mute, invisible, slaves, ignored, nothing. So we have a lot of adults now who have all of those same characteristics because the conditioning from your parents has destroyed the self. But if you have Stockholm syndrome, where you're vowing your allegiance and your loyalty to your parents because you're convinced your parents were good people, your parents, and we're really going to dig into this now. You are confusing a bad person with a good parent. Good person does not mean good parent. Good person means they are kind and they're gentle and they mean well. But you can be a good person and have a mental illness. Most parents do. Most parents are good people with horrible mental illnesses and are bad parents because they're just ignorant. They're just stupid. They just have no conscious awareness. And that's really the perspective that we need to step into. That's the first perspective. The first perspective is understanding that your parents can be good people or bad people. And they can be mentally ill people and healthy people. And they can be good parents or bad parents. You have 3 different characteristics that you are dealing with. Your parents' mental health, your parents' good versus bad, their moral compass, and their parenting skills. 99% of the people who defend their parents have this confused. They think that moral compass means good parenting, and that's bullshit. That is the first thing we need to get rid of. That is a misleading belief. That is a toxic belief. And that is the first toxic belief that we have got to remove. Because your parents, I'm not questioning their moral compass. I'm challenging their parenting skills, which most likely reflected their mental illness that you don't know they had, that you probably still don't know they had. You want to talk about their moral compass because your conscious awareness is turned off. When you turn on your conscious awareness, you realize the very beautiful, subtle difference between moral compass, good and bad parenting skills, and mental health. Now, in addition to mental health, you have conscious awareness. And I guarantee you, in most cases, they had no conscious awareness. So you were at the mercy of their subconscious mind. How'd that turn out for you? But all you want to talk about is their moral compass. But you don't want to talk about their moral compass. You want to just go to war and defend these people. And you have no idea what you're even talking about in most cases because your conscious awareness is turned off. But when you turn on your conscious awareness, you realize that you are fighting tooth and nail to defend the morals of your mom and dad, when in fact, I'm just talking about their mental illness and their parenting skills. I don't know your parents. I don't know if their moral compass was good or bad. I have no idea. I know that some parents have really horrible moral compasses. I know that a lot of parents have really horrible mental illnesses that affect their moral compass. I have seen some very beautiful, morally solid women, mothers, who then use their fear from their subconscious mind to infest their children with guilt and manipulation because they mean well. You see that a lot with women, especially Christian women, and Jewish women, and Italian women, and Irish women, where they mean well, their moral compass is solid, but they are using their mental illness and their fear to religiously abuse their children out of fear, traumatizing their children, which is horrible parenting skills, but they mean well. When you become consciously aware, you start to see the subtle differences between these. You start to separate yourself from your parents and you say, oh, my mom was morally solid and my mother was very morally solid, but her subconscious mind ran her. She had no conscious awareness and she had really bad parenting skills. You can be a bad parent and a good person. But a patient spends so much time defending their parents, that's your fear system turned on, that they've missed the point of shifting perspective. The point is to get you to shift to the next perspective. And the next perspective is you seeing the human and the fallacy in your parents so that you sever loyalty to them. Because it's really important that you break off that loyalty to them. It doesn't make you a bad person. It makes you a consciously aware person. It doesn't make you a bad person. It makes you intelligent. The ship is going down. And you can choose to stay on the ship that's going down. Or you can get into the lifeboat. But you're so dedicated to the mentally ill, nice person with bad parenting skills that was your parent, that you're going down with the ship because you're loyal or stupid. Literally. Would you call that intelligence? Conscious awareness has to come up. Conscious awareness is intelligence. I'm saying it. Conscious awareness is intelligence. So either your conscious awareness is on, and then you go, okay, I see the difference. I need to step into the lifeboat because that doesn't serve me anymore. Self-sacrificing is stupid. It is a show of ignorance, uneducation, and stupidity. It is not honorable. It is stupid. Really, let us sit down and explore the intelligence of refusing self-preservation. Because that's what you're doing. You are choosing to die, to live a miserable life, to become toxic, to nurture your mental illness, all for the sake of refusing self-preservation. When self-preservation is our very first core law of survival. Interesting how we do that, isn't it? That we are giving up self-preservation for loyalty to a mentally ill, bad parent. I would say that's pretty fucking stupid if you want to go down with the ship. It's actually fear of change, fear of loss. Well, if I change this perspective, am I going to lose my parents? You don't have to. No. What you're going to gain is self-preservation. So step into the lifeboat. All that you are losing is your story. When you change perspectives, you just lose your story. And it's not even your story, it's your parents' story, or it's your society's story, or it's your government story. It's not your story. You are just losing their story. You are finally saying to your mom and dad, hey, mom, I love you. I respect you. I honor you. But your story is bullshit. I'm going to work on self-preservation from now on. Because when you work on self-preservation, you get happiness. When you work on self-preservation, you get safety, the real deal. When you work on self-preservation, you get your identity back. And then you get to really enjoy life your way, and you really get to live. That is the beauty of self-preservation. But you don't have self-preservation if you are so focused on being loyal to others. You can't have both. You're gonna have to choose. You are absolutely gonna have to choose self-preservation or loyalty to others. You know, I grew up hearing the Bible verse, a man cannot have two masters. And it really keeps coming back to me lately, over and over. I always thought it was a woman choosing two husbands. I always thought it was a partner having to choose a primary. I always saw it in the sense of love and having to choose between two different people that she loves. When you're polyamorous and you're forced into a world of monogamy, that's a real scary thing. I did not realize until now that the story, the parable, a man cannot serve two masters, was actually telling the story of you being loyal to yourself or to other people. Third perspective shift. There it is. You don't get the choice to be loyal to yourself and to others. You don't get that choice. If you are loyal to someone else, they are abusing you. You don't get to choose between your loyalty to yourself and the abuser. The abuser is free to abuse you. Somebody who's healthy will never ask for your loyalty. Somebody who is healthy will never ask for your loyalty. Somebody who is healthy will insist that they put you first. I'm in the middle of a class and I just realized I need to tell my partner that I love him. For 2 years, he fought me on this. He insisted that I put myself before him, and I argued with him. For 2 years, he fought me on this. He insisted. Every time I gave him any kind of love, he said to me, Anna, you need to be true to yourself. You need to be loyal to yourself. Don't ask me what you want. You decide what you want. And I would say, well, what about you? Don't worry about me. You focus on you. Your priority should be you. For 2 fucking years, he said that to me. And I fought him. And now here I am going, oh, I get it now. And he's right. You be loyal to you. And don't ever trust a man who insists that you have to give your loyalty to him. That's a red flag. So here I am going, wow, that man, even when I was willing to throw myself at his feet, he said, no, you preserve the self first. So yeah, I need to tell him I love him. But that's it. You cannot serve 2 masters. What you don't realize is that your ego is so small, your self-value and your self-importance is so diminished from abuse that when I said a man cannot serve 2 masters, you didn't even think you were part of that equation. That is how bad it is. That is how little you think of yourself. That is how toxically abused your mind is. Your story is so far from you that when I give you a basic parable, a man cannot serve 2 masters, you don't even think you're part of that equation. You don't even think, oh, I'm one of those masters. I can be a master of myself. It didn't even occur to you. That is how fucked up your current perspective is. Now, in the next video, I'm going to show you what your perspective could be.